Here we have Bronde Blonde Lightening. Your education today will show you how to lighten natural textured hair. She's mixed with curly and fine hair. The products we use today are a high lift ash violet base with 40 volume. I process for 50 minutes. The reason why we're not using bleach today is because we do not want to further damage her hair. She does not need bleach to get to that brondy blonde color. Whenever we are choosing our product lines, we want to think about how many levels of lift, and we are doing up to 5, which will get her exactly where she wants to be without over processing, extra damage, and having to rely on a gloss to balance the color out in the end. As we started her first section, we took a very fine weave, not to over lighten the hairline. I wanted to keep it very soft, and we did not paint to the base. And our second section is about 3/4 of an inch to an inch past the first section. And this is where we will really start to get a little heavier with our weaving of the hair of where we're going to apply the color. Now, her texture is very curly. We're going to have a lot of snags and tangles throughout this application. So remember to have a lot of patience and be delicate. We also have to think of our application process and the client being comfortable during this time. I have fast forwarded through most of the detangling, so you won't be bored by that. But you have to have a lot of patience when working with snags and curls because we really don't want to hurt the client experience. Now, as you can see, I just weaved out her hair, and the expansion of her hair is quite a lot. But we know when we put product through that and define her curls, they will be a little bit smoother. And then we will also notice how much dimension we'll get by the what we leave out is just as important as the hair that we do color. We want to make sure we have a lot of dimension. As you can see, these are some very bold highlighted pieces, and they're going to really have a lot of pop throughout the hair when it's styled. One part about very curly hair is that when you put light hair next to dark hair, you create this really beautiful combination, and the curls will start to show themselves. It won't just look like a bunch of frizzy hair, it'll look like these beautifully defined curls. This is one reason why I love recommending a slight bit of highlighting on a lot of my curly haired clients to bring out their texture. I'm very cautious when I fold my foils not to push the product out. I don't want it to bleed into an area I don't want it to be. I want to make sure my application stays clean and smooth. Traditionally, on really fine hair, you want to lock the foils in very tight because there could be a lot of slippage. The opposite is happening for super curly hair. You want to make sure you don't pack your foil in too tight because you don't want it to blow out, create heat bands, or spotting on the hair. Texture like this does have product buildup. Maybe there's some metals in the hair. And because of that, when you add color on top of that, sometimes things like swelling can occur. Any extra heat can make the hair shaft swell with the color on it. Just things to be cautious of when you are creating your beautiful looks for your clients and choosing products. Now, we did talk about the fact that we are not using bleach. Bleach does not have the control like color does. And when you're working on texture like this, her natural level base is a 6, her ends are at an 8. It's obvious she's never had color before, but she will lighten very easily. I don't want her to have white highlights. I do not want to have to rely on a toner or a gloss at the end to balance her color. Using a high lifted color, we know it stops at 5 levels, which will give us exactly the tone we are looking for. And if we do tone it at the end, it will just be to enhance it. It won't be to have to color correct it at the bowl. Now, as we approach the front section here, I'm going to take a very fine weave right close to the base of the hairline. I want it to be soft and natural and not too bold. We're not doing that heavy of a many piece. We're doing it just gentle enough. As I apply my application, I'm starting mids to ends, and then I slightly feather up to the base as close as I would like it. I'm not going super solid on the base here. I want to have kind of a lived in feeling, and I'm feathering up to the top pretty gentle and a nice, good application, making sure that we've got it worked in thoroughly. I'll do 3 back to backs, and this third back to back here, they're all weaved. And this herringbone application that I am doing, I love because it really does help against weird stripy hair. It has a nice generalized dimensional effect to the application when you pull the foils out. And when your client goes to style it, it'll have this really beautiful blend happening. Now, because she naturally has 2 to 3 colors in her hair, and we are adding in a brighter dimension, it's really going to enhance her natural colors, and it's going to be gorgeous. And because we're not painting all the way to the scalp, we're not going to have that light dark thing happening that can happen when somebody is virgin colored hair. This is going to have more of a lived in effect, and her ends will be so much brighter. We'll continue the same technique through the top until we get to the back. Here we are going back to the other side of the head now. Same sectioning pattern. We'd already mapped that out. Very fine weave on the side. We don't want to over brighten her along the hairline. Also, if you notice, on a lot of textures like this multi-textural hair, the hairline is a little bit frizzier, a little bit more dehydrated. So, this is another reason why putting bleach on the front hairline at somebody at this level and texture is not my go to choice. I do not want the hair to be damaged, fried, anything that might feel like there's going to be breakage happening. I love to err on the side of caution. I'm really big into the health of the hair. And if we can already notice how her natural texture lightens, even if we make her a high lifted blonde Bronde, she will still get lighter as time goes on based on her natural texture. You can see the dryness here. She probably is a type that has to use a lot of product and adds a lot of moisture to smooth down the cuticle. Now, for when it comes to coloring hair on porous hair, we know it lifts so much easier than hair that is not porous and is sleek and hard. This gives us an advantage knowing that we're going to get the desired results that we're looking for. But we also means we have to err on the side of caution whenever we're using products, things like lightener, bleaches, and any other product choices out there. I love making sure my clients have healthy hair. Now we're working on the last top quadrant on the hairline here, and we'll do the same technique as we did on the other side. On the first section, we'll do it a very fine weave so it has a softness to it without being too bold and blocky. And we will continue the same pattern as we did on the other side. Now, again, this is a lived-in look, and the very front, I like the hair to be a little brighter, closer to the scalp, but as I get past the first three sections, I start to drop the application so it has a little bit more depth on the base. Again, I don't like to tease this type of curly hair when I'm using color. I do not want to hurt the client. I don't feel that that type of service has more good than harm because of detangling the curls is already tough on the client's hair. So when you get the curls wet and we're combing them out, we just want to make sure that her hair is in good condition and that she enjoyed her experience from beginning to end. And I know in my application process with curly hair, it gives and it moves a lot more. So I don't have to tease like I would very fine straight hot hair to give that lived in feeling. So I'm doing this second foil back to back and leaving out enough dimension in between in terms of my weave, but creating boldness around her face. As you see, I start to apply from mids to ends with a nice saturation, and then I slowly feather up. And I like to feather the hair up closer to the part line on the right-hand side of the foil and leave a little bit more depth on the left-hand side to have a little bit more to show off the brightness and have some darkness without feeling like she has stripy blonde hair. This is where we get to really play as an individual and a professional to have a little bit of fun. And as you'll notice, I still am not squishing my foils flat. I really want to make sure there's room for her hair to expand within the foil and not cause bleeding, breakage, and unwanted spots. I've been taking my time throughout this application, detangling her hair as we go, having a lot of patience, and making sure she is comfortable the entire time I am applying this to her hair. Keeping my application at pre-setting it up before we apply and mapping out is always how I start all of my color. I always section everything the way I like it. So when I get in, I can move quickly and I know that I'm giving my client the best application, the timing is right. And if you spend too much time in the back room mixing, you don't want the hair to be over processed in the chair. So I pre-mix all of my products on my tray and I have them laid out. So all I need to do is add the developer and mix as I go. As we are rearing through the crown of the head, my amount of weaves are thick, but not too many. I'm staying within my section. One thing I'd like to point out is I never put my comb down. I leave the comb in my hand at all times. I've been trained to have it in my hand so I do not waste time while working. Here's the very last section. I'm actually going to just put that up and I'm going to get to that the very last. I want to make sure that nothing is in my way while I'm working up the back of the head in my section that I'm going to be approaching now. This is connecting about mid foil from the right and the left side. And we're going to go a little bolder here in our application. I'm kind of visually looking to see where is that hair going to fall and see how much expansion is happening within those curls. It's very dense in this area. We do not need to overfoil. The sun will never hit here, and the reality is the ends will have a lot of impact, but the base you won't even notice when the hair is down. We do not need to apply the product towards too close to the base. We're going to have this dropped down because the impact will be more on the ends, and we don't want her to look like she's got this bright, chunky blonde in the back of her head. I love to have a heavy saturation when I apply my foils to make sure that the coverage is done well, the lifting process is even, and I can walk away going, yep, it's going to be. As we reach the very last section, we want to have complete control of our sectioning, making sure we aren't messy, we're keeping a really clean application process, and just taking the extra time to make sure that your sectioning is just what you want it to be. Now, as we have approached these last few sections here, we're nearing the end of the application. I have painted up slightly higher than the previous sections because I want the brightness to come up a little bit higher, as this will be a little bit more visible when her hair is down. Where the previous sections, the hair was hiding the base and really only the end will be showing up. I like to be a little bit meticulous here. As you can see, I've dropped out about 1.5 inches from the base and being very delicate with my foil. And the very last section, I'm actually moving back to the top of the head. Now that I've got my path cleared away, I can do my very last section right at the crown of the head. And I'm just taking a very gentle weave here. They're kind of a thicker weave, only two. And as I drop my foil in, I make sure I do not paint close to the base. This is an area of the head that separates, and I don't want some bright blonde separation on her scalp zone. So I've really dropped about 2 inches out, but the brightness will lay over everything, just not the crown of her head being illuminated like the front.